So let's assume like this sentence that we have printed on previous line, my name is being 0 and I'm 2 years old. So let's assume like we have name in a variable which is being 0. Today we are going to talk about what these variables are and how we use them. And then we say int age. So these are the two variables we have, and now we want to print value of these two variables. So we have three choices: system.out.println, system.out.print. So if we go ahead with system.out.print, now we are going to print a message, my name is. Now after is we have to put this string which is in some variable. So typically when we have to join two things, I mean one part is string and other part is a variable, we do a plus sign. So what it will do is it will print my name is, and after that it will use the value of that variable. Then after that we put a dot here, we are adding another string and we say I am. Then right now I'm not talking about these double quotes and single quotes. I'm simply going ahead and printing I am 21, then we space years old, and after that also there is a full stop. So this way if we print the message, what it will do, it will print the message in one line of the output, and after that cursor will not move to the next line. What that means is after that if we try to print another message, and this is new message, what will happen is output will appear like this: my name is being 0 dot I am, the value of age will be replaced by this value 21, and because after that we have given a space, years old, full stop. So this is what the message will be, and it was print, so cursor remains here, that means it will keep on blinking here. So after that whatever next line we print, be it print or println, what will happen is this will print the message here. This is new message, and reason of printing this message here is because we used print. Now after this if we have a third line, which is this is second message, what this will do is, because we used println here, what println does, after printing the complete message, after printing the line, it puts the cursor onto the next line. So cursor will be here. Now since we are printing the next message here, so it will be printed on the new line. So this is straightforward, right? Difference between print and println. And I think this is something that was easy to figure out for anyone. Next thing that typically is different is system.out.printf, and that was not there initially in Java. It was introduced in I think Java 1.5 version. Now reason it was introduced was because if we want to print such messages where we are taking variables, we are having some string and we are interleaving them together, and we are using a lot of plus operators to join them together. So in this case it becomes very complicated to use plus operators and figure out have I started the double quotes after the plus or not, because strings always go in double quotes. So in order to simplify this requirement that printing should be made very easy, printf was introduced. Now in printf what we can say is my name is, and here we put a placeholder. %s is called format specifier, and %s means a string will come and replace this format specifier. So you are saying my name is this, I am %d years old. So this is pretty neat. If you see the message, it tells this value is coming from, is going to come at runtime from a variable. This value is also going to come at runtime from a variable. And then after printing this formatted string, what we do, we give the name of the variables one by one. So first is name, second is age. And when we do so, this %s will be replaced by name, and this %d will be replaced by age. And when we print that, the value will be printed as output. Now if quickly we have to try this, let me see if my Java C is in, yeah. So I go to desktop, so let's create this notepad, print message.java, and this has opened up here, print message, and public class print msg. And as we discussed yesterday that we have to create a class whose name will be same as the file name, and then we write first function public static void main. We give a string msg, and this is where we start writing our code. Now what we are going to do is whatever we discussed just now, let's give it a try. Let's run this code and see what is the outcome. So we paste these 3 lines of printing here. So this is the line, this is next line, and this is next line. And after that we will use the printf also, so that in one program we have all 3 used and we can see the difference between these. So this is the complete code that we have typed. After we type the code, we save the file. So I have already saved it by pressing Ctrl S. Then we go and do Java C to compile our code. Java C print message.java, enter, and we see the code has been compiled. Now if we run it, before running it, let's guess what the output will be. Can someone tell? Okay, Srinivas has joined. Srinivas, did you get a chance to look into the problems that were shared yesterday?
No, Sandeep, unfortunately not.
Okay, no problem. So basically we are having a discussion about those 2 questions only.
No, sure.
Okay, so first message is system.out.print. Now if this is print, what does this mean? Sarita, system.out.print, what will be the effect of this line?
Yeah, it will show the name and age.
Right, so it will print the message my name is, this is a string, plus it will add the value of the variable here, because there is a space after space the name's value, which is being 0, will replace this. So first message will be printed here, and after that, because it is print, cursor will it move to next line or not?
No, it won't move, I think.
Okay, it won't move because we are using print function. What that means is the next message, the next line is printing on output screen, that is going to be appended to the first line itself. So let's go ahead and run it to validate what output it gives. Java space print message dot class. Now is this the right command to run the code, or I'm making some mistake?
We need to remove the class.
Yeah, we have to remove the class, otherwise I'll check.
Should not use dot class.
Exactly. So if I run with dot class, it will say I could not find or load main class, because dot class yesterday we talked about, this is not to be given here. Now when we give this and we run the code, we see the output is my name is being 0 dot I am 21 years old, and after that the second message is coming in the same line because cursor did not move to new line because of print. So now this message is printed in the same line, this is new message, and because we use print ln here, then cursor moves to the next line. So cursor came here. Now we are printing the second message, this is second message, this is also printed, and because it is print ln, cursor again moves to the next line. And by the way, in the Java code here, doesn't matter how many enters we put, this does not cause any change to the output, because compiler typically ignores the blank lines in our code when it is converting our code to bytecode. Okay, so now after printing this line, what it will do is it will look at next call is system.out.printf. That means we want to do formatted output, which is my name is %s, and %s will be replaced, name will replace this value and age will replace this value, and that's why we are seeing this is in new line. Now one question, system.out.println last line, and this is for everyone, anyone can answer this. If we have program modified and we are printing one more line, where will this line appear? It will appear in the same line or a new line? Because it, yeah.
New line.
Okay, so Sarita's that call is new line. Okay, how about Srinivas? We'll go with majority. So both of them are saying it will go into new line, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there is a little correction here, that only println, because the name of the function says it will give new line, only println causes new line to be put at the end. Printf also is similar to print, it does not put new line in the end. So that is something we can remember. Only ln, and this ln stands for line. After printing, put a line. So correct answer would be, if we write, if we go and compile the code again, run the code again, sorry, I have to remove that dot class, we will see the last line is also coming in the same line, and reason behind that is printf does not put new line in the end. So printf, print, they are the same. And now we can understand in which cases we will use print, in which cases we will use println, and where we will use printf. Printf's case, we can say it's very evident. If we want formatted output and we want to have a clean code which is easy to read, now we can see this line versus this line. The code that is easy to read is this particular line, if we are using variables to be outputted and which is intermingled with string. Now any questions on these three functions? Okay, great. So these are the ones that we are going to use quite often in whatever programs we are going to write today and going forward also. Even in Selenium related automation that we do, we begin with writing a lot of command line output. So people typically get more comfortable with println, because by default it prints the message and puts the new line. So this function, I would say, is the most frequently used function that people use. Whenever the variables get intermingled, then printf can also be used. Now printf and print also have a way to put a new line in the end. Can someone point out what is the way? Let's say in the same code, without modifying the print to println, if we want to put the new line in the end, after this line has printed the message, we want to have a new line. We want to move the cursor to the new line. What is the way? Any answers?
We can use the new line operator.
Yeah, so where do I use that and where do I put?
At the end of the message,
Awesome.
we have the system.out.println. Yeah.
Correct. Here.
After, yeah.
So what do I put?
The /n.
Exactly. Awesome. That's the thing. So this /n, anything that we put in string, there, if we put that along with slash, that has a special meaning, and this /n stands for new line. So /n, let me put that in notes here, that ideally /n is a combination of two characters / and n, but it is treated as one character, and this is a special character. We call this kind of character as escape sequence, because slash is escaping. If slash comes with n, it has altogether different meaning. /n means a new line. So if we put /n over here, it will put a new line in the end. Same way in printf also we can use /n, that will also put a new line, and this way we will see all the messages will come in new lines. So let's go back again. Every time we change the source code, we have to recompile, then we run the code, and this time we can see all our lines are, all the messages are coming in separate lines. Now one more question, let me put, what if I put a new line here? Will this have an impact here? What change will be in the output of this line if we put /n in the middle? Yeah, let's make guesses also. Even if we are not sure about our answer, guesses will also do, because typically, yeah, somebody was going to say some answer. Sushma?
I think I'm 21 years old, comes with a new line.
It will put a new line. So this will print, so your answer is this will print my name is being 0. and in new line space will come, I am 21
Yeah.
years old. Okay, and that's the right guess.
Right.
So if we go and compile the code, let's rerun the code. This time we see my name is being 0, and after that, since we use /n, the next message immediately goes to the new line. So /n can be used anywhere inside a string to change the output to a new line. I mean, after that, string is split into two separate lines. And this could have been used even in the first print. /n is available in all the functions: print, println, printf. We can use it anywhere. It's part of the string. So hope that these concepts are clear. Let's quickly summarize what we talked about. We talked about three functions: print, println, printf, and we talked about what are the difference in that. Then we talked about two more concepts. One is escape sequence, another we talked about format specifier. So format specifier that we have used here is %s and %d. So these four things we have talked about. Okay, I'll save it in the end. Now coming to the main question that was given yesterday, and the question was, we have to print this message, but every time the message should go into a new line. A message should be having double quotes around the name, single quote around the age. So that is what our exercise was, and I guess one of you have done that, other two people did not try. Yeah, so can we get the answer? How you tried, Sushma? So basically, what change do we make to this program so that the name that is coming in output, it comes in double quotes? Yes, Sushma.
The one that I have used is system.out.println, and I said like my name is / in brackets in quotes being 0 and ended with a /.
Okay.
And the same way I have formatted that I am 2 years old as well. So it gave me the text that you are looking for.
Okay, so let me make a copy of this program so that we have previous program also preserved. Print message dot java. Okay, so now program that you had written was, so I'm removing unnecessary lines because we are going to talk about the solution. So here we have to put this name in double quotes, and I guess you did not use any variables, right?
No, I haven't used any variables.
Okay, fine, we will begin with that. So let's say system.out.println, and we want to say my name is being 0. That is what, okay, so I got your message. So let me copy paste what Sushma has sent. So yeah. Now this was the catch in this program, that if we want to print double quotes as part of our message, then we have to put that into by using escape sequence, because we talked about escape sequence / the same way if we want to print double quote also we have to escape it with /. Now reason behind that is simple. Let's say if we are putting without /, then what Java compiler will think, it will think your string started here and it ended here, and it gets confused that your string started here, ended here. Now what is it that is following this closing quotes, because it doesn't know that this is continuation of one string. So if we would have used the double quotes without having /, compiler gets confused that it is matching double quotes of the initial double quote. So for that reason, whenever we put /, we are telling to compiler, hey compiler, this is not the end of my string, this is actually part of my string. So this one should not be treated as the closing double quote, and that's how compiler allows us to use it. Otherwise, if we don't give this and if we try to compile our code, compiler will give an error to us. So if we try that, java print message.java, okay, I guess there is some problem. It was some other code that was running because I saved in another location. Yeah. So yeah, actually some other program was modified. Yeah, so let me get this message again. Yeah, so what we were trying to do was we were removing the starting slash and we were compiling. So now compiler gives an error to us and it says round bracket is expected, because it is saying your string started here, ended here. After this ended, you should have closed the bracket and you should have proceeded further, because println expects it to be that way. You have not put the right the closing bracket. So that is what this error is saying. This is expected in line number 5. So what we do, we get rid of the double quote by making we get rid of the error by making it part of the string. After we do so, if we compile our code, we will see the code compiles fine. Let's try to run it and then we will talk about the remaining message also. So here we see the double quotes are printed as part of our output, and single quotes are also printed as part of the output. But in case of single quotes, ideally there was no confusion to compiler that single quote is end of some character or some string. So here even if we use slash or not use slash, that won't make much difference because compiler will not have any confusion about the single quote. So previous one also was fine, and this one also should give us the same output. So output is not differing in case of single. So the key takeaway here is whenever we have double quotes as part of our string, we want to print that or we want to have that in the variable, then we escape it with slash. Single quotes, we have option, we have choice, we can escape or we may not be required to escape. So any questions here? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks Sushma for trying that and sharing the solution. Fine, so that way we have covered both of our exercises. So let's move ahead with today's agenda. So this is what class 1, quick recap. We talked about why we should learn programming, then we did introduction of Java, what are the features of Java, then we talked about bytecode, JVM, JRE, JDK, and eventually we talked about machine setup. Then we wrote our first Java program. We had some quiz and in the end we had exercises. Now today's class we are going to talk about essential elements of a program. Then we will look into data types and classes. Then we will talk about input output functions. Ideally output functions we have already talked about, system.out.print, printf and println. So we will take a look at what function we use to read the user input. Then we'll talk about conditional statements and we will end the class with some programming problems and some assignments. So let's get started. Now whenever we write any program, be it Java program or any other language program, there are some essential elements in that program. So in order to understand those elements, let's first talk about a programming problem. So problem is, we have to write a program that takes two numbers from user as input and prints back their product. That is what is our exercise. So what we need to do in order to write this particular code, we can take a look. There are certain things to pay attention to. First thing, we are taking two numbers from user as input. So we should have a way to remember those two input numbers. So we need variables. Like if I tell you that my email ID is, if I tell you my email ID immediately, just give me a moment, my son is knocking at the door. About that. Well, so what we were talking about is the concept of variables. If we have to remember 2-3 email IDs in our mind, then in our mind there is separate memory given for storing of each variable, and wherever we store the value of those email IDs that we are asking, that term is in programming language, it's used as a variable. So here we are talking about two numbers taken from user as input. So essentially we need two variables to remember the numbers user has given to us, and then we want to print their product back. So we can take a third variable which will calculate the product and we will store in the third variable. Then we need a way to read numbers from the user, and we need a way to print them back to output the result to the user. So in nutshell, if we have to think about writing this code without talking about syntax of any particular language, then we will write something like this, where we focus on just four keywords, which is start, stop, read, write. So these are four keywords that we have used. So the concepts or keywords, we can say we have used start, stop, read, and write. Now start is a statement that tells where the program is going to start. Stop is a statement where the instructions end. Then read statement is whenever we have to read something from the user, we'll use the read statement. And then write statement whenever we have to write something to the user back, that will be write. So our system.out.print, println, and printf all fall under the category of write statements. Eventually, if we can think of the logic in this way, then it becomes very easy for us to convert that logic to any particular programming language, because all we have to figure out is what is the equivalent of start in that language, what is the equivalent of stop in that language, what is read equivalent, what is write equivalent. Apart from these four concepts, there is one more, which is data types and variables. Because when we are storing these values in some variables, these variables should have some data type. Because typically if we are reading user's name, it will have a data type of type string. If we are reading some integral value, which is 2, 3, the whole numbers, we take integer values. So typically all programming languages will support different types of data types. So this program that we are seeing, this logic that we are seeing, it is called pseudocode. We are not following any programming language. We have just converted our thought into some pseudocode. So what we have done is we have declared 3 variables. Then we have read the value of 2 variables from user, and the value that we read, they are placed into these variables. Third variable we did not read from user because we have to calculate that using the first 2 variables. Then we are printing the output back. And we have also used the operator here. So operator that we have used here is arithmetic operator, which is star, and star stands for multiplication in terms of computers. So other arithmetic operators are plus, minus, same mathematical operators that we have used. Star is for multiplication, slash is for division, and there is one more, percentage. Anyone has an idea what does percentage symbol stand for? First 4 we are familiar with. What is the meaning of the last one?
It's the modulo operator.
Yeah, that's modulo operator. What does that mean? So if we do 5 modulo 2, what would be the output? So basically we can say modulo operator is equivalent to remainder. So if we divide 5 by 2, we know it is not a whole division because 5 is not divisible by 2. So whenever we divide, then some remainder will be left over. So what would be the remainder if we divide 5 by 2? Srinivas?
1.
Yeah, it will be 1. So modulo exactly gives us the remainder back. So whenever we apply modulo, we get the remainder back. And you will see this particular operator is very, very useful in a lot of problems that are typically given in interviews or a lot of programming problems that we do ourselves. So we will take a lot of examples where we will be required to use modulo operator. So I have those exercises lined up in the slides. So when we reach there, we will talk about how we use this operator to figure out the answers to some of the programming problems. Well, so these were essential parts of a program, and this is how we will proceed. And today's class will focus on, yesterday we talked about what is the start equivalent in Java, then what is stop equivalent in Java. Then we also talked about today what is write equivalent in Java. What we have not touched based on is read. So we'll cover about read, and we will take a look at the other concepts that are written here, which is data types, variables, and then we will be solving some programming problems. So we'll be writing a lot of code today. So Data types. Now we want to understand what data types Java supports. So Java has a lot of data types supported in it, but there is a distinction between inbuilt data types of Java, which are primitive, which are very basic in nature, versus any classes that Java has. Because every class in Java, we can say it's a data type. So we'll see that difference also in a short while. But let's talk about primitive data types, which are very basic necessities of any programming language. How many primitive data types are there in Java? So Java has 3 categories of primitive data types, and total data types in primitive category are 8. So we have 8 primitive data types. All those 8 are categorized into 3 top level heads. The first head is integral data type, where we store integer values, the whole values which do not contain any decimal point. So integral category will have 5 data types under that. We'll see that picture in short while. Then second data type or second category of data type is Boolean, a data type where we can store true or false values. Any condition is true or false, we'll be using Boolean variable, Boolean data type over there. And third category of data type is a floating point data type. 3 categories of primitive data type, and overall they segregate into 5 primitive data types. The bottom ones we can see byte, char, short, int, long. These are 5 primitive data types which belong to integral category. Then there is a Boolean data type which belongs to primitive, which there is only one data type in that category under Boolean, which is Boolean. Floating point, there are 2 categories, float and double. Float is typically used to store small numbers, which are kind of, in most of the real world needs will be satisfied with floating, but for some calculations, scientific calculations, we need more precision, so double is used over there. If we have to store up to 100 decimal places any number, then for more precision, for storing higher values, we go with double. In integral, byte is a data type which is typically used to store very small numbers, which range from let's say 0 to 127 or 0 to 256. So that's the range that byte supports. Character supports little more than byte. Then there is short for small values of integer, then int, then long. But typically in all the programs that we will write, the most frequently used data types and the frequently used primitive data types that you will see is, we'll be focusing on char, we will be using int, we will be using Boolean, and from here we will be using float. So these are the 4 that are essentially what we are going to use. Others are just for our knowledge, for converting, basically for knowing like how many other supported data types are there. So they will not be used in the programming problems that we are going to do in initial few classes. And key takeaway from here to remember is the 3 categories of data type, and total there are 8 primitive data types, because this concept will be revisited when we talk about collections going forward. Fine, so now we know the data types. Now let's see the use. Where will we need these data types? So let's say we are writing programs where we want to store some type of value and we have to figure out what data type that will be. If we have to store age of a person, let's say age in years, how many years old that person is, so what will be the suitable data type out of these 8? Anyone?
Integer?
Yeah, it will be integer because we are talking about in number of years. So ideally it can be any data type in the integral category, because byte can store up to 256 values. So age of a person will always be, we can say, under 150. We can make that assumption. But yeah, because int is most frequently used primitive data type, so int is the answer that we will go with. Second, if we are storing the price of an item in a grocery store, typically we go to supermarkets to buy stuff, what will be the data type if we want to store the price of an item? And guesses are allowed.
I think float.
Okay, so Srinivas and Sushma are saying float. Yeah, so that is right, because typically the item's price will be in some dollars, some cents, or if we talk about Indian currency, it will be rupees and some paise. Because sometimes we get discount also, 10% discount, 20% discount. So any price that we typically store, that we use the floating point value. So we can go with float. And since it is a grocery store, we know we don't want to store the bigger huge values in that, so rather than picking double, we'll go with float. Next, gender of a person. What should be the data type for gender of a person? Sarita?
No idea.
No idea? Just make a guess.
Maybe
Char.
Okay, Sushma's guess is char. Typically when we store gender of a person, we kind of store M or F, which is male or female. So that way if we go, then it will be a char, because we want to store only single character to tell the gender. So yeah, char is the data type. Ideally if you say, we can use int also, that if int is 0, we say it's female, if it is 1, it's male. We can make any assumption, 1 for male, 2 for 0 for female, like that. But when we have char available, that is more suitable, more appropriate, so that we can represent the gender in M or F. Some people argue like boolean can also be used. We can use a variable called isMale. If we put true, then we know person is male, otherwise false will represents the gender is female. But char will be more appropriate. And these questions are picked here so that we can think of where the selection of data types comes in our mind. Because before we go into solving problems, we should have this understanding of what data types are and how do we convert a programming problem or a requirement into data type. Yes, Sarita, so char makes sense here, gender of a person?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, great. Another thing, typically like any batches that we do, even in past, we request people to make guesses also, because that way when we make a guess and when our guess is wrong, those kind of learnings, they persist longer in our mind, because once we make a mistake and when we learn from our mistakes, and that's a human tendency, those concepts will stay longer. So anytime you see any question, feel free to speak up whatever comes to your mind. So don't hesitate, it will help eventually in learning for everyone. Yeah, so next question is value of epsilon in scientific calculations. What should be the data type? I thought this time answers will come faster.
Double.
Okay, it will be double. Yeah, because value of epsilon, that E symbol that typically we see in, at least I don't remember those school days when we use those epsilon and pi values, but yeah, those are in floating points. And since we are talking about in scientific calculation, that means we are talking about having a lot of precision. So we go with double values. Well, so this was primitive data types and their use, where we use them in real world. Arithmetic operators we talked about in previous slide also. So here also they are included, that most of the data types which are integral and floating, we will see the first four operators, they work with integral and floating both. But the modulo operator is only for integral data type, because modulo does not make sense in floating point values. So the remainder operator is not applicable to floatings. Sorry. Yeah, so with that, let's move on to do some exercises, coding exercises. Let's first predict the answer of operators so that we understand the operators well, and then we will be using these operators in the programs that we write. We have a variable declared. Now anytime we declare a variable, syntax of declaring a variable is we write the data type, we write variable name, and we put a semicolon. This type of syntax is called declaring a variable. So we will typically, any programs that we write, we will be declaring the variables. And here data type can be any data type out of 8 that we have talked about, or this data type can be a class also. We'll talk about the classes later, but just remember here we have to put a data type which is an inbuilt data type in Java or any class in Java. Variable name is, we have freedom here, whatever we pick. If we are storing age, we can write age. If we are storing price, we can write price. So this V represents a variable name. So this is called declaring a variable. Second notation is when we declare the variable, at that time we can put some initial value in it. So this is called declaring and initializing a variable, that we are declaring as well as we are putting some initial value. And both these syntax are very common in programs that we are going to write or we see others write. So here in this case, if we see, we have declared two variables and both of them have been initialized at the time of declaring. So A has value 2, B has 5. Question is, what would be the answer of A plus A into A? And let's get quick responses. These questions are open for everyone. Yeah, any answers?
It's 6.
Yeah, Srinivas, I heard some answers from your side.
Yeah, it is 6.
Yeah, it is 6. Typically 2 plus 2 into 2. Then plus does not happen first. First the multiplication happens. That's a typical mathematical rule that we have. So 2 into 2 will be 4 plus 2 will be 6. So this answer will be 6. Second one, B divided by A. What would be the answer? If answers don't come, I think I'll start taking names of people so that we have some accountability. Yeah, this time Sushma, B divided by A. What is the answer we are expecting? Sushma, can you hear?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, what is the answer?
Is it 2.5?
2.5? Yeah, ideally we expect it to be 2.5, 5 divided by 2, but in programming language there is a twist. Whenever we do integral division, whenever we divide an integer with another integer, the answer comes in an integer. It truncates the decimal value. So here,
Okay.
ideally the answer will be 2.5, but because both of them are integers, Java answers it. Java will make the answer as 2. Decimal point will be excluded.
Okay.
Yeah, so here it will be 2. Next, B modulo A. Sarita. We talked about modulo operator earlier.
Yeah.
So what is the answer? 5 modulo 2.
Maybe 1.
Yeah, it will be 1 because we talked about modulo is a remainder operator. Absolutely, that will be 1. B modulo 3. Srinivas. 5 modulo 3, because when we use B, the value of that variable will be used.
Yeah. I guess it's 0.
5 modulo 3. So we are talking about divide 5 by 3 and tell us what is the remainder.
2.
It's 2. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it will
yeah.
be 2 because we are talking about remainder here rather than the
Yeah.
quotient. Great, that will be 2. B divided by 3. Now this is open for everyone because we talked about division operator. I think previous approach was better, asking individuals. Yeah. It will be?
1?
It will be 1 because it's when we divide, we are talking about the answer of division, not the remainder. So 5 divided by 3, 3 ones are 3, and that's how we divide. Remainder will be 2, and quotient, I guess, right? We say the answer as quotient. So quotient will be 1 because 5 is not divisible by 3 completely, so we divide by 3 and 1 will be the answer. Because it is integral division, b is integer, 3 is integer, so answer comes in integer. So that's how we get the answer as 1. Well, now whatever knowledge we have gained, whatever we have looked at through these problems, we will be using that in upcoming programs. So the first program that we are going to write is, we are going to write a code that reads 3 integers from the user, calculates their average and displays the average as output. So that is what we have to do. Right now I'll make this program a little easier because we have not talked about the function using which we read a value from the user. So what we are going to do, we are writing a program where we'll take 3 variables, calculate their average and we'll print that, and then we will gradually bring the way to read the variables from user. So here let me open another notepad++. We write public class and data type assignment we are doing. So data type 1 program we write, and here we write public static void main string. In next week we will be moving to using an IDE, either Eclipse or there is another IDE. But before that, when we are doing basic problems, I would request you all to use Notepad, because that way it makes it our good habit to remember the syntax and make less typing mistakes. And after that, like using IDE, we'll feel like more comfortable in coding. Initially, I mean, imagine if there is a kid who is learning mathematics, if we initially give calculator to him, then learning kind of becomes a little slow, because for everything or anything he will be going to calculator and using it to calculate any value. So this writing in Notepad is like doing the mathematical sums yourself without having calculator. Once you get comfortable with the syntax, we'll move on to the IDE. So this week's assignments also that we are going to share, just work on them using Notepad. So let's share it here, data type 1.java. That's how we save it. And Notepad++ offers syntax highlighting. So all the keywords are highlighted. And then here we write the code. We said the function will require 3 integers. So we take int n1, n2, n3. These are the 3 integers that will store some value. So till now we don't know the read syntax. So I'm writing any value here directly. So in n1 I'm putting 2, n2 let me put 3, and n3 2, 3, 5, and 6, 11. And this is a to do for us. We don't have to hard code the values, we should have taken them from user, but that we'll do later. Fine. So now we got the 3 variables. We have to calculate their average and display the average as output. So now we need average. Here we can declare average as another variable. Can someone tell what will be the data type of average? So we talked about some primitive data types.
Double.
Double is mainly for huge values, right? Ideally double is also a correct answer, but we can go with float, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so double or float both are the correct answers, but we don't need a big variable like double, so we can simply go with float here. Float avg, we give it a meaningful name, average. Now how do we calculate average? If I say avg is equal to n1 plus n2 plus n3 divided by 3, that's how we calculate average. Sum of items and division of the items by the total number of items. And then after we calculate the average, let's go ahead and print back the answer. So here virtually we can use any function, but since we are using variable, first I'll show with system.out.printf average. If we have to say average of first number, second number, third number is %f. Now here average is float, so floating values we always print with %f. So we can say average of n1, n2, n3 is avg. So since we wanted to do formatted output, and we have printed the message like this. If we were printing only the value of average, we would have simply said system.out.println. We say average is plus avg. This is another way, but in the first way we have used the variables also, and we have used the values also. So I'll comment out the last line and I'll leave it like this. Now before I compile this code and I run this code, let me ask a question. Is the code or the logic that is written here in main, is that correct? Now let's talk about the answer we are expecting. If the values are 2, 3 and 6, what is the average of these three values? What answer do we expect? Their sum is 639 to 11. 11 is the sum, 3 items. What is the average that we are expecting? (11) divided by 3, we expect a decimal value. 3 3s are 9, 3 3s are 9, yeah. Then 2 will be remainder, 0.6666. This is what we expect it to output, right? Because we have taken our average to be floating value.
Yeah.
Now, so do you see any problem in this code that is written over here?
Yes, the division is going to happen on N3.
Awesome. That's a very good catch, Srinivas. So let me show you. If we run this code, sorry, I should have been compiling. Now this time, where did I store this file? Okay, this is in E drive. Class 2 we are in. Yeah. So we do java c data type 1.java. Code got compiled. Java data type 1. When we run this code, we can see the average of 236 is 7. So that's a wrong answer we are getting, because this is the answer we expected. Answer is coming something else. So Srinivas pointed it right, that division has more precedence. This is equivalent to 2 plus 2 into 2. Earlier there was a question asked, 2 plus 2 into 2. Typically I get a strong urge to always do it like 2 plus 2 is 4 into 2 is 8. That's not the answer, because multiplication has higher preference over addition. So first multiplication happens, then addition happens. So it's 4 plus 2 always. Same way here also, division has more preference over addition. So what is happening is N3 gets divided by 3 first. So N3 was 6. 6 divided by 3 gets replaced by 2 here, because 6 divided by 3 is 2. Then N2's value was 3. N1's value was 2. 3 plus 2 plus 2, that's the 7. That's the answer we are getting, which is the wrong answer. So this is pointed out well. The problem is here. So what should we do? What is the fix?
Enclosed with the bracket.
Yes. Enclosed in the bracket, because we want the addition to happen first, and brackets help us enforce the preference. So brackets are saying, because the bracket will have higher preference over multiplication and division. So this bracket is saying first evaluate the expression inside the bracket and then go and do the division. Now what will happen? 2, 3, 5 plus 6, 11 divided by 3. That is what is happening. Let's go and run the code once again. Java C, Java, and this time we see the answer is coming as 3.000. So still we did not get the right answer, but we could become closer there. Now who will give the explanation of this? Why we are getting 3.00 rather than getting 3.66? Sushma, any explanation for this?
Sorry, what is your question?
Question is, now we expect the answer to be 3.66 because the sum is 11. 11 divided by 3 we are doing here, and we are assigning the answer back to an average. but the answer that we are getting from our program is 3.00, not 3.66. Why is that the case? Srinivas?
Not sure.
Not sure. Okay. Sarita?
Means you mentioned here float average. It's that's the thing. Taking 3.00, no?
Yeah. So because of float, the answer we are getting in decimal. The question is, why not 3.66? Remember we talked about in the previous slide that if we do integral division on, if the numerator is integer, denominator is integer, then the answer we are always going to get is an integral answer. So on the right side it is 11 divided by 3. Whenever we do 11 divided by 3 in Java, it will never give us the decimal answer. So right side of this expression is evaluating to an answer 3. It is truncating the decimal value because both are integers. And then this value 3 is being assigned to a floating value. So truncation happened on the right side itself. It did not reach to the left side. So that's why this answer 3 of integral division was being given to a float, and the float is printed as 3.000. So what we should do is, we don't want to miss those decimal values. So the fix for that is, we should make any one of these variables on the right side as float. Because if we upgrade one of these variables, be it numerator or denominator, if we upgrade one of them to float, then entire expression will become float expression. So we will be doing division by a floating value. So one way to do that is, if I make 3 as 3.0, now what is happening is 11 is integer, 11 we are dividing by 3.0. So we change this equation to 11 divided by 3.0. Since the denominator is a floating value, the answer will also be floating value. So we will be getting answer like this. So this is one way of fixing it. So let's go ahead and compile the code again. Wait, some problem happened. Okay, we can't put like this. I'll explain this later, that why I have to put F there. But by changing it to 3.0, we have got the answer in floating value. So nutshell, the key takeaway can be like, change either denominator or numerator to float. And we changed the denominator. Now let's say this we did not want to do. So what we can do is, we can change one of the variable on top to floating value. So if I change it to float, and that change is done like this. In bracket we can write float in front of any integer, then it becomes floating value. So this is called typecasting. Typecasting. The concept of typecasting is, change a variable to any other type of variable. And this also is used quite a lot in Selenium automation. So how do we do that is, we have a variable y, we want to change it to another data type x, or another data type we can say float. So if y is int, we say float of y, it will make the y float. It will convert this value into floating point, and that we can assign to any float x. So this is the concept of typecasting. So this is the second way of fixing this. We made this complete this one variable as floating. Now when float plus float happens, it will become float plus int happens, it will become floating value. So compile, run, we can see this time also answer is the floating value. So in nutshell, if we have to summarize everything that we have talked about, in summary we can say one line: any integral calculation of mathematics operators results into integral answer. So if we are expecting the answer to be floating, we have to change any one of the variable in that equation to float. That upgrades all other variables to float. So that's the message, and that is what makes some programs like this as a obvious choice for interviewers, typically warm-up questions that they ask, they can use this concept, they can twist it in any way, and they can give a programming problem where they are going to check this concept. Are we aware of converting data types from one form to another? Because at high level, when we go to use classes, these concepts are utilized. So any questions on this problem that we talked about? Okay, great. Fine, so this is one problem that we have done. There is another problem listed here, which is write code to read two numbers from user, swap their values and print their values after swap. So what we are talking about is we have two variables which have some values. So here I'm not going to talk about solution because this I'll leave as an exercise. I'll describe the problem so that it is clear. So in our program we have to take variable x and we have to take a variable y. Now there are two ways of declaring two variables. One is we declare int x int y, or another syntax is int x comma y. In one line itself we can declare two variables. Now the program says that when we run the program we assign some value to x, let's say 6, y is 5 or y is 7. So program should print a message first. It should say before swap x is 6, y is x is 6, y is 7. And after that we should write some code which performs the swap, that value of x should go into y, value of y should go into x. So second time if we print the value of x and y after swap, then the answer we are expecting is this should be printing 7, this should be printing 6. And here in between there is expectation of write code to perform swap. So problem statement is clear. This is what we want to do. Should I leave this as an exercise, or you people need a discussion on this? Sushma, you think you can try this?
We'll try it out.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. Fine, Srinivas?
Yeah, we'll do it as an exercise.
Awesome. Do the exercise. Here try to use printf, because again we are doing a formatted output. So printf, using printf, print the values of x and y. Here also print the values of x and y. Great. So this I'll leave as an exercise and we'll move forward. Okay. So these were the exercises about data types. Now till now we talked about two programs where we did not take any user input. Now let's talk about if the numbers were to be taken from the user at runtime, like previous program that we did, we hard-coded the values. We said we will calculate the average only for these three values, and we put a to do here because we did not talk about the concept till then. Now we are going to talk about that concept. Outputting, since we have already talked about, so I'm skipping this slide. Okay, one additional point here is in printf we use /n to put new line. In printf we have one more format specifier available to us, %n. This is also used for printing a new line. So we can say printf has two choices to put new line, %n or /n. But %n is not available to println or print. We can use /n in the messages of print and println, but %n is special format specifier only for printf. And then there is a question here, what is the format specifier for boolean? We have seen %d, we have seen %f, %d was for integer, %f was for floating. If we have to print a boolean value, then we use the format specifier %b. B stands for the first letter of the boolean. So that is what this question was. And there are some escape sequences given here. We used okay, now I need to go out. Fine, okay. Sushma has to leave. She has some session. Fine, Sushma, no problem. You can watch the recording.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Well, so these are the escape sequence. Slash n we have seen is for new line. Slash t is for putting a tab in the output. Same way we have seen slash double quotes. And if slash we want to print as output, then there is double slash. So there are some escape sequences given on this slide. Well, so let's talk about the reading user input part. If we want to read user input from a user, then what is the syntax we follow? So for that purpose, we use an inbuilt class in Java. Okay, let me figure out. There is one slide. Yeah, okay, this slide should be ahead of this so that we can talk about how do we use classes. Because we are going to use a class, so we should first understand what classes are, what objects are. Now before we go there, let's quickly summarize what we did. We talked about data types and variables. So what we said is we declare variable of any data type like int age. Age is a variable, int is a data type. Exactly same correlation classes and objects have among themselves. So here int is a data type, so we can say class also represents a data type. So class is also a data type which is complex data type, which is not primitive. Example, if we say laptop is a class, it means we are talking about some sort of laptop similar to the age. If we are talking about age, it's a generic concept. We may be talking about my age, your age. Here, if we talk about a laptop, we will say laptop is kind of a variable we want to declare, but that variable will have a specific value, and the type of this variable will also be a laptop, because laptop has a lot of properties associated with it. So what we can say in nutshell is class is a data type which is a complex data type, that data type will have many more characteristics attached to it. So class is laptop, and L, if I put here, L is a variable of that data type. So you can correlate the syntax with int age. Int is a data type, age is a variable. So here laptop is a data type which is class, and L is a variable of that data type which is an object. So class we can say is a complex data type, object is a variable of complex data type, that is class. Typically a class will contain two types of members, data members and functions, and we will revisit this topic again when we talk about next topics. Here this introduction was required because we are going to use a class now. So even if all the things are not going, we are not able to grasp, that's perfectly fine. Just this analogy should be good enough for now. How do we declare variable of any data type? That's how we declare variable of type class. Now syntax for class will be, syntax of declaring the variable for class is we type the class name, we give the object name, we directly don't assign the value, we use a new keyword. So new, and we put class name and round brackets, and sometimes it takes some parameters here. So that is one thing about class. Now let's take a real world example. If I say get me a toothpaste from the market, let's say if somebody at your house is instructing you when you are stepping out of the house, and the person says please get me a toothpaste. So the question that we ask back is which toothpaste do you want? So ideally we are asking which brand toothpaste we want. So here if we say toothpaste is a class that we are talking about, that somebody wants, object of that class, but we are saying which brand. So we want to disambiguate, we want to clarify that which class object the person is looking for. That disambiguation is something that package does in Java. So a lot of concepts that we are talking about class, we are talking about object, we are talking about package, and we are talking about declaring the object of this class. So just keep these points in mind. We will see a live example of this, and then we will come back and revisit these concepts again. Now what we are doing in the next example is, we wanted to read these values from user. So we say if we want to read these values, we need an object that helps us read the values, and that object will be of scanner class. So Java has a class, inbuilt class called scanner, whose object helps us read the values from the user. So what we are going to do, here we are saying we need object of scanner class. Scanner is the data type, SC is the variable. Now this variable name we could have given anything like N1, N2, N3. We can declare this variable. Then we say classes variables are not assigned values directly. We use a new keyword here, and with new we write system. Okay, here with new we write new scanner, which is our data type, and it takes some input system.in. Because we are reading the user input, we have to take system.in. Whenever we write something on the output, we use system.out. So to scanner we say, hey scanner, you are the one who will be scanning, who will be reading the data for us, and you will be reading the data from system.in. That is, wherever user gives the data, you just please read the data from there and pass it on to us. That is what in nutshell we are going to do with this object. So we have created object of scanner class, and then rather than writing 2 here, we will say sc.nextInt. So this way we are asking scanner to read a value from user and put it into N1. Then we are asking scanner to read next value from user, put it into N2. Then we are asking scanner to read third value from user and put into N3. So what these 3 lines will do, it will wait for user's input 3 times to take 3 integers and put into our variables. Now if you want to give some indication to user what we are looking for, we'll use system.out.print, and we will say enter N1. Now when we run this code, we can see what will happen. This line will print enter N1, and after that program will be waiting, scanner will be waiting to read the first number. Same way we put enter N2 and we put enter N3. And that way we will be reading 3 inputs from the user, and this way you will notice we have made our program dynamic, and we will be able to use the values that user enter rather than using the hard-coded values. Now one last thing that we have to do is, when we run this code, when we compile this code, compiler is kind of getting a message from us that get me a toothpaste. So we are saying to compiler, get me an object of scanner class, but compiler is going to ask us which scanner, because even we can define a scanner class. There is inbuilt class in Java scanner. Lot of Java scanner classes can be there, like a brand of toothpaste. So we have to tell to the compiler using import statement that we are waiting for scanner class which is in java.util package, because all the classes that are inbuilt in Java, they will be in one package or the another. So this line that we write on top is to tell compiler that we are using scanner class which is defined in java.util package. So with that our program becomes complete. Let's go ahead and compile our program Java C, and we see compilation happens. If we did not have put this line import, let me remove that, save it and compile it again, then we will see the compiler says cannot find the symbol, because we did not tell the compiler which scanner we are using. It says cannot find the symbol, cannot find the symbol. 2 errors it is giving. One, because we have used scanner on the left side. Another error because we have used scanner on the right side. It sees this symbol used at 2 places. Both the places it is pointing out it's an error. So in order to get rid of this error, we tell to compiler the scanner which is there in java.util. So now we compile this code. Let's run this code. And now when we run this code, just see it has printed enter N1, and after printing the enter N1, it is waiting for user input. And until unless user gives an input, the scanner is not going to proceed further. If I simply keep on entering, this line is not proceeding further. If I say 3 enter, 3 enter, 3 enter. Now all 3 variables that I gave were 3, 3, 3, and it got 3 in N1, 3 in N2, 3 in N3, and our program printed average of 3, 3, 3, because there we were printing values of variables. Average of N1, N2, N3 is %f, and we can see the answer is coming like this. Now we run this program again. This time we enter 2, 3, 6, and we see the answer is different. So this way we have written an interactive program where user is able to give any values and we give the answer accordingly. Any questions? Srinivas, Sarita?
So the next thing is the method provided by the scanner to take the inputs from user?
Absolutely. So nextInt is a method in the scanner class which we are calling to take the user input. Yeah. Now if we come back to this slide, we'll see we're talking about class is a complex data type, object is a variable of the data type, class contains data members and functions, or we can say functions are also called methods. So we are using the function of scanner class, and to that we are saying give us the next integer. So this is a function in that class. So ideally this was a quick introduction to classes and objects, but we will see them in detail going forward. Sarita, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. So summary of what we have used is there in this slide. What is class? What is object? What does class contain? It contains data members and functions, and we have not used any data member. We have used only function of that class. What is the concept of package in Java, and what is the syntax of creating objects? So this way we create the object. Data type, variable name equals new variable. That's how we create the object. So this was about reading an integer from the user. If we have to read a floating value from the user, then there are functions like next float. Now we can go and take a look at scanner class. So we can say scanner java doc. So java doc is the documentation of any class. So we can go to scanner class, and here it describes the usage of the scanner class. It says create the object like this, then you can use next int, next long, and we can see there are a lot of next related functions, and next. Wait, we'll come down. You can see this class has a huge list of functions that are shown here, and it has corresponding function for every data type. It has next boolean, next byte, next double, next float. Remember we talked about 8 primitive data types, so it has a function corresponding to every data type. Next int. It has a next line to read a string also. We did not talk about string as a primitive data type because string is a class in Java. So we'll do a short introduction to string also, because there are some problems going forward that we will be doing with strings. But just remember this concept. 3 rules I will write. Typically before we compile any program, in our mind we should be asking 3 questions to us, compilation rules that will help us write code comfortably and perfectly. First rule, after we have written the code, we should ask ourselves is, have I missed any semicolon? Because Java mandates any statement that we write in Java code, it should end with a semicolon. So if I go back to this code, you will see semicolon is there. Here also semicolon is there, semicolon is there. If we miss any semicolon, if I remove this and we go and compile the code, you'll see a compilation error. It says semicolon expected. So first rule we should ask is, we should scan our code ourselves before compiling it to see, did we make this common mistake that people make when they start coding? Have I missed any semicolon? Second thing that we should be asking us is, have I used any class for which import statement isn't added? And third question that we should be asking ourselves is, have I used any variables without declaring them? If answer to all these 3 questions in our mind is yes, we can confidently go ahead and compile our code. So missing any semicolon example I showed you. If we use a variable without declaring it, I'll show that example. So here in this program we declared n1, n2, n3 and we used them. Let's say n3 was not declared. If we skip declaring that and we directly start using it, then also compiler will shout, it will say n3 cannot find the symbol. Compiler does not know what n3 is, what its data type is. And wherever we have used n3, all those lines will be given as error. Because we used n3 here for the first time, then we used n3 in the calculation, and then we used n3 at the time of printing. So all 3 errors are coming. And we know these 3 errors will be fixed by just one change, and that is we should be declaring the variable. And the third one we have seen already. When we use scanner without putting import statement on top, that time compiler gave an error. So let me make the rules in this order. So these three rules are easy to remember, and then you will find the coding will become much fun-filled. Then we can easily code any kind of program without any mistakes. And after running these three rules in our mind, if we show the code, be it in an interview room that we are showing it to the interviewer, if we have run these three rules in our mind, then chances of leaving any errors for interviewer to point out, they reduce a lot. Typically this is something that as an interviewer it runs in our mind, that when we are interviewing candidates, we know these mistakes are quite often made in interviews, and that is what differentiates us and other people who are the candidates for the interviews. Okay. So any questions on this? Great. So one more thing, we talked about classes will contain data members and functions. Here, how do we access the data member is using object, we can access the data member, and using object we can call the function. So this syntax we have seen. Using object we call the function of scanner class. We said sc.nextInt. Now one more small demo we will do with the string, and then we will wind up today's class. So let me copy this code, and we will be seeing another object demonstrated here which is of string class. So what we are going to do is, let's say string example. Let's save this code and string example. Okay, I should have saved that as Java, string example.java. So what I told is string is a class in Java. So if we have to create a string object, we say string s is equal to new string, and we can give it any name. So let's give it a name, let's say Srinivas. So what we have done is we have created object of a class, and we saw like this is how we create the object that is there in the slide, the syntax. After that, what we do, class typically has data members as well as the functions. Now string class has a data member whose name is length. So if I say length of string is s dot length, we can print. Now length is a data member, it's a property that describes the string. If we do s dot length and if we print that value, this value is an integer, and we can see 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. 8 characters are there in Srinivas, so we expect this function to print 8 characters. After that, if we call a function on s, string class has functions also, lot of functions. Char at, there is a function char at. What is the character at particular location? So this location is called 0th location, this is first location, this is second location. So if I say char at 2, what we are going to get back is we are going to get a char which is I, because that is there at second location. Now if we print that value also, println char at second location in string, and we print that character with +c. Simple example where we are showing how do we use the string class. Now let's run the three rules in our mind before even we give the compilation. So the three rules that we talked about were, have I missed any semicolon? So we go to our program, we scan it line by line. This line is one statement, semicolon is there. This line is second statement, semicolon is there. This is third statement, semicolon is there. Fourth statement, I missed the semicolon here. Found the mistake. If I did not run these rules in my mind, this line compiler would have told us that you have made a mistake here. Let's go and first ignore the mistake that we made. Let's compile our program and see compiler will tell us that. And ideally we have figured out before the compiler, semicolon. So let's fix that. First rule, scanning in our mind, we could figure out our own mistake. Let's run the second rule. Have we used any variables without declaring them? In this complete program, we have used one variable s which is used here, and we see we have declared it. It is of type string. Then we used another variable C in this line, which is again declared, and that is declared as chat. So that's a mistake. It should be char. Yeah. So here we figured out there is a mistake that we made. So we found out another problem. Okay. So second rule also helped us correct one more mistake. Last one is, have we used any class for which import statement is not added? So in this program, have we used any class? Yeah. So we have used string class, and for string class we did not put import statement. Ideally, for string we should have imported java.lang.star. That is the way to fix string, but in creators of Java, they made a call. They said string is the most frequently used class. For this class, we should not put an overhead like inclusion of import statement, because by default even main function uses string. So they relieved this requirement for string and other classes in java.lang packages. So whether we write it or not, this is implicitly included, this package. So here, just for the sake of writing, let's go ahead and write it just to be explicit that we have addressed the three requirements, so that it makes our habit to include any imports that we miss. So now we have incorporated all three rules. Let's go ahead and compile our code. Java C string example, hit enter. Okay, there is some problem that we got. It says cannot find the symbol length. Okay, reason is length is not a data member. Length is also a function. So that's my mistake. Length is also a function in string class, and we should have called that as a function. Now if we Java string example, if we run our code, we will see string length is 8. The second location of character is I. At second index the character is I. If we would have said index is 4, okay, SRIN 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there also it is I, so we make it 5 and we run the code again. Java C. So 8 and not at second, this time it is at fifth index. So now it is printing fifth location, we have V as character. So 30% of being comfortable with Java is in knowing about the classes that Java has, what functions they have, and how do we use them. Once we get that knowledge, then we start getting comfortable with the syntax of Java. And then second complexity, the remaining 70% complexity comes when we have to create our own classes that other people can consume and use. So any questions related to what we talked about just now? Okay. So one more small example I have. Let me talk about that also. It's a window example. In Java, we have a class that helps us create windows. A window like a window form, we can say. So there is a class called JFrame. So let's say JFrame W equals new JFrame. Then we say W dot set bounds, because any window, like if I open Notepad, this is a small window that we can see on top. Now this is a Windows based program. It will have a location in the complete desktop. So top left point here is the XY coordinates of this window. Then it will have some width and some height. So we create object of a JFrame class. Then we say set bounds, show it at 100x 100y. Then width should be 200, height should be 500. So this function that we are using, it takes x, y, width and height. After we create the object, we say w dot set visible true. Just 3 lines of code we have written. We have created object of type JFrame class, and we have called 2 functions on that to see whether it will launch a window or not. Now let me ask you to run 3 rules in your mind and tell me if we have violated any rule. So Sarita, what was our first rule for compilation?
That we should not miss any semicolons.
Yeah, so let's run that rule in our mind and see, is our code honoring that rule or violating that rule? Yes, Sarita, what is the answer there?
Yeah,
It's honoring?
yeah.
Yeah, so we have only 3 lines of code and this one line is comment, and comment is ignored by compiler. So first rule is honored. What was second rule? Srinivas?
The classes, whatever we are using, we are importing.
Okay, so are we using any class here?
Yeah, we are using JFrame class.
Yeah. So we should be importing the package in which this is defined. So we can have import statement javax.swing.star. So we address that requirement also. And the third requirement was?
Variable declaration.
Yeah. Are we using any variable in our program? Like here we can see we are using w that we have not declared. So w is declared, only one variable used and we have declared that. Now once all these 3 rules are honored, we can go to javac window example.java and we see our program compiles in the first time. We do java window example, we hit run and we can see there is a window created for us. So this is a window. Now if I say my width is 800, save the code, compile it again, java c window example, java window example and run it. This time we see the width has increased from 200 to 800. So basically whenever we create object of a class, we can call functions on that object to play around with the object. We can change various values. So here if I say x is 0, y is 0, this time what we will notice is the new window that is appearing, its top left corner we are setting to 0, 0. It will start from the top left corner of our desktop because that is how the setting we are doing. So let's go ahead, compile the code again, run it again. This time we can see it is going on top left corner. And if we change it to x is 300, this top line is our x coordinate. So the window will appear here and the y will be 0 only. So it will be attached to top but shifted towards the right side. Java C, Java. So this is what it is. Okay. Well, so that was about classes and objects and we have covered about reading user input. Scanner is the class we use. Java.util is the package. This is the syntax. And now there is an exercise here. Write a program whose execution looks like this. And this is the exercise we have done earlier. Ask for the name, ask for the age. That time it was not interactive, it was not asking user. So this time we have made the program like ask user 2 things, ask his name, ask his age and print back this message, my name is Sushma, I'm 25 years old. And when we run this program for the second time, then if we enter the name Srinivas, we enter the age as 28 and this time it will print the output as my name is Srinivas, I'm 28 years of age. So this also I will be leaving as an exercise so that it gets you familiar with scanner class. And using scanner, first thing you will be reading is a string, second thing you will be reading is the integer. So we did not talk about how do we read string from the user. We talked about reading an integer.
Hello, Sandeep?
Hello?
Sandeep,
Hello?
you there?
Hello?
Hello?
Okay. Yeah, it seems
Oh, sorry.
Hello?
Actually, hello. Sorry, yeah, my mic got muted. Hello.
Yeah,
Hello?
it's good now, Sandeep. Yeah, it's good
Okay,
now.
it's good now. Sarita, you are able to hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, my mic got muted.
Okay.
So what I was talking about is if we have to read a string from the user, then there are functions in scanner class which will be sc.nextLine. Using this, we can read a complete line from the user. If user is entering a complete sentence, my name is this, then we can read that sentence and we can take the value back in string s. So this is the way we read a complete line from the user. If we want to read only one word from the user, we say sc.next, because you will find there is no function in scanner class which is next string. There is next int, there is next boolean, there is next float, but next string is not there because they have given functions like sc.next to read the single word and sc.nextLine to read the complete line. So these are the functions that you will be using to do that, to complete that exercise. So let's go back and put these also in notes in the end. Okay, so since it is the class time is over, so I'll be stopping here and we'll be resuming from here from the next week, whatever conditional statements related programs are there. So I'll be uploading the deck till here so that you can focus on doing these exercises. So one exercise that we left previously was swapping two variables, and another exercise is using the scanner class. And similar to this, if you need more exercises also, I can send small programs which are related to data types as well as input output. So that way, get started, get your hands dirty into the language so that we can do advanced programs with some ease. And yeah, these three rules will help you go a long way. So just remember to run the compiler in your own mind whenever you write code and you are about to compile it. Well, any questions till this point? Srinivas?
I think we are good. Sandeep, regarding that, the J frame
Mm-hmm.
class.
Yeah.
So basically, I mean, this is used to create windows.
Yes, this is used to create windows. The GUI applications, we can say, graphical user interface.
Okay.
So yeah, we create windows using JFrame. Then there are classes. So yesterday we were talking about 4 units, right? So so yesterday when we were talking about the syllabus, which is this, all these concepts fall under the Swing package. So creating GUI applications, JFrame and JPanel, those are the ones we will be covering in unit 4. And before that, whenever we develop auto completion, there are some weekend projects that we do, right? Calculator, deck of cards, which are applications of array. We will be using this class quite often.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So since you asked that question, there is one famous thing that typically we do with the candidates who take our training. We typically ask, like, we say Java is object-oriented programming language, right?
Yeah.
Why? What makes us say it is object-oriented? So answer to that is that any program that we write in Java, most of the programs that we write in Java, it's a collaborative collection of objects. So here also you see there is an object W we created. We change some settings on that and we make it visible and the window came. So in any program we are writing code around objects. So when we are writing a code which is around objects, its orientation is about objects only, so we say it's object oriented programs. All programs revolve around objects. So objects are interacting with each other to run the program. Make sense?
Yep.
Now if you may say, in this window that is appearing, can we add a button to this which has a click me text on that? So we just run this code. So Java window example. So when we run this code, wait, it is launching a window, but the window does not have any title, window does not have any button. So what does it take to put those things? So for first to set the title, we say w dot set title, and here we say my first window, put a semicolon. So this will change one more setting on that object. Then we say we create a J button, btn new J button, and the text there is click me. Now we have a button, we have a window. How do we join them together? How do we bring them near each other? So we simply say w.add btn. Now this button will be added onto the frame. Let's go ahead and run this code. Java C, Java. Now you see the window got a title because we called the set title function. Then we created a button, we added that to window, and that's how the button has taken the complete window space because there was no other control in the window, and the button has click me, and we can click this button. Now going forward, there is more code. If we want to say whenever some button is clicked, what code should we run? So then there are more functions that we will be writing, and that's how the programs in Java happens. Programming in Java happens. So we take an object, we understand what is there in its class, what can we achieve using those functions or using those data members, and that's how the object-oriented programming happens. Yeah, and we will be covering these things in detail.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, so that will be end of today's class, and before we wind up, because we talked about a lot of things, let's do a quick summarization of what all we covered today. And the summary of that is, we began our class with input-output functions. Output functions basically. We talked about system.out.print, system.out.println, and system.out.printf. Three functions we saw, and we did an example there. Then we talked about concept of format specifiers, which is used in printf functions. %s for string, %d for integer, %f for float, %b for boolean, and %n for a new line. So these are the format specifiers. Then we talked about the concept of escape sequences, which is /n, // /t. These are the escape sequences that can be used inside a string, and they have a special meaning. Then we moved on ahead with the concept of variables and data types. So we talked about data types in Java, and then we talked about how do we declare variables. So we talked about few syntax of declaring the variable and declaring and initializing the variables. Then we moved on to the concept of class, because class and object are very closely related to how we declare data type and their variable. So we looked into that. We talked about related to classes, that classes are defined in typically packages. So we have to import a package if we are using any class in Java. Then we did two programming problems. One was that of putting the product of two variables, and then we calculated the average for three variables. And there the key learning was, if we are doing a calculation with only integers, be it addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, integers always result in an integral answer. And we took a insight into the modulo operator, % operator, that works only with integers, and the answer is always a remainder. And after that, we talked about three rules that we should be having in our mind whenever we are going to compile the code, because that helps us become a better programmer, and we can write the code which gets compiled in the first attempt itself. And there are two exercises that are shared. One to swap two variables, and second exercise is to take user. We did not talk about the coverage of scanner class. We talked about scanner class, using which we can take user input. So scanner class is there in java.util package, and then it has functions like next int, next to read the string input, and next line to read complete line of string. So these three functions are mainly what we talked about today. Yep, so that is where we close it. Well, if you have any further questions, you can ask now, or we will be meeting in the next week. Sarita, you got any questions?
No, maybe next week I might have few.
Okay, sure. Srinivas?
Yeah, for now I'm good. Sandeep.
Okay, great. Then let's meet next week to basically begin with the more details of our unit 1, because now we will be actually getting into writing programs which are decision control, loops and functions. So next week mostly we will be putting effort on unit 1, and by the end of the next week we will have 2 working applications with GUI, which is calculator and deck of cards. Okay, thank you guys.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Okay, see you next week then.